he's talking about people that are asleep. They think they're awake. This is the waking sleep state. He said wars are fought by sleeping people. Books are written by sleeping people. They think they're awake, but they're asleep. So Ouspensky says, very well, I said, but are there no people who are not asleep, who are not machines? It may be that there are, says Gurdjieff, only those people you do not see and you do not know them. That is what I want you to understand. And Ouspensky presses him further. And then Gurdjieff finally says, but there is the possibility of ceasing to be a machine. And that's what I want you to think about, and not all the different kinds of machines that exist. I think about these new acronyms. Kids today want to call themselves they, and it freaks me out, quite frankly. What Gurdjieff says is we think we're one person, but we're actually multiple people. We have multiple eyes. And he wants us to coordinate all those eyes into one person. So you want to be able to say, I'm one person. I'm not multiple people. I'm one person. I have control over my destiny. That's the ultimate goal. It's not easy to get there. So an example for the multiple eyes in my own case, and frankly, I have it every day of my life. The night before I say, I'm going to get up early tomorrow. I'm going to get up at 6:30. Get ahead of the game. It's 6:30 in the morning, and I say to myself, I don't care what that idiot said last night. I'm staying in bed another half hour. So there are the two eyes. I know in myself that Gurdjieff is completely right. Sometimes emotion takes over. That's a different eye, and you have to separate yourself from this other eye. So I wanted to give some other examples of mechanical man. And that's exactly what Gaston was really talking about. He was waking up. He was realizing that that certain triggers, woke you up. So the question is, how do you get into a higher state of consciousness? To get into the waking state, there are 4 states again: sleep, waking sleep, which is the everyday state. All these people, they think they're awake. We think we're awake, but we're really asleep. Next state is waking. How you get into waking is self-realization, remembering yourself. It's through intentional suffering. It's not so easy. And the concept of self-evolution, trying to make yourself better every single day. But there's a state above that, and it's called objective consciousness. Objective consciousness is linked to Aristotle's idea that there's a purpose to the universe. And what Gurdjieff is saying is that man's consciousness plays a role in the evolution of our planet, that we have a reason why we're here, and we're playing a role in the evolution of the solar system. That's a very far out idea. On a lower level, I was thinking about the war in the Middle East. And what I came up with, you have tribal mentality. One tribe says this, another tribe says that, and they have all this battle back and forth. And I was thinking, why didn't we have that kind of problem here? And I think the reason we didn't have that problem was Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King said, don't judge a person by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's the 4th state. You can't get any higher than that. He's definitely right. And I think that's about the highest state of consciousness you could possibly get in. And the problem in the Middle East is they didn't have a Martin Luther King. They didn't have a Nelson Mandela. They were stuck with was a Yasser Arafat and a war mentality. So it's a matter of consciousness. How do you raise your consciousness? Another book I would recommend, besides In Search of the Miraculous, is a book called Boyhood with Gurdjieff. It's about a 12-year-old boy who ends up in Gurdjieff's school in France in the 1920s. It's one of the best books I've ever read, Boyhood with Gurdjieff. I want to read you just a little passage from this book. Gurdjieff emphasized the fact that everyone had usually, it's about a 12-year-old youngster who ends up at Gurdjieff's school in France. He knows that Gurdjieff's a big deal, and he was told by Gurdjieff to tend to the garden, but he put it off. I'll read a little bit from this section. So he didn't do his work. Gurdjieff emphasized the fact that everyone has usually a particular current problem in life, usually a form of laziness, which took a fairly obvious physical form in the case of the garden. You must ask yourself, whenever you see your own laziness, what is this laziness in me? If you ask this question seriously and with concentration, it's possible someday you will find an answer. This important and very difficult work I give you now. I thanked Mr. Gurdjieff and said I'd do my work in the garden properly in the future. Gurdjieff brushed aside my thanks and said it was useless to be sorry. It's too late for that now and too late to do good work in the garden. In life, never have second chance, only have one chance. I read that section, I know, wow, that was urgent for you. The next guy on my list is Rudolf Steiner. Now, what Steiner talked about was the word I. I, he said, is a very unusual word. I can say, Robert did this, Mr. Beckman did this guy did this, you did this, he did this, but I can't say I did this for you. So I can only relate to your own self. So when Moses goes to the burning bush and asks God what his name is, God says, my name is I am that I am. Steiner is saying is that when you talk about your I am, your I-ness, you are linked to the Godhead. And again, going back to Gaston's lecture, that's exactly what you were saying. He's saying it's all within. So I'm reminded of a story that I heard from Rabbi Gelberman, who was a Kabbalistic rabbi. He talked about when God was up in heaven meeting with the angels, and they were deciding where God should be placed on the earth.
I did.
And one of these little angels raised her hand, and God called on her, and she said, why don't you place yourself inside everybody? They'll never look there. The last guy on my list is Tony Robbins. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Shallow Hal, but Tony Robbins, about 6 foot 6, and he mesmerizes Hal, and then Hal is going out with a lady who's extremely large, and he now sees her for who she really is. It's a great movie of Jack Black. What Tony Robbins said was that when you smile, there are 80 muscles in your face which are used to smile. And so it sends a signal to your brain to tell you that you're happy. So a lot of people are on antidepressants, and I'm not talking about someone who's depressed for a real reason, some real tragedy in their life. I'm talking about the everyday person. We all know people that are on antidepressants. So one thing I'd like you guys to do is to smile right now. So there's a number of us here. Put a smile on.
The most dangerous one.
Smile. Robert. Mr. Beckman. Put a smile on your face. Give me a fake smile. I don't mind a fake smile. Put a fake smile. Fake smile. Go ahead. Now, what he's saying is, even if you use a fake smile, you're sending signals to your brain. Your brain has to change its neurochemistry because it's reading that you're happy. So it actually changes your neurochemistry. I thought that was a brilliant idea. The other great idea I think Tony Robbins had was an important moment in your life. You want to be up for that moment. And so what he said is to think of the 5 of the greatest moments you've ever had in your life and memorize those moments. Anton de Saint-Exupéry, the author of The Little Prince, said it this way: it is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. In other words, what is essential is not seen, it is felt. It is right here. It's the heart chakra. So, as Brett Skellin used to say at the end of his TV show, God bless and thank you. It's an honor to speak with you today, and I thank you very much. When Richard Nixon said, I am not a crook, you knew he was lying. It resonated in his throat that he's a liar. When Martin Luther King said, you choose a person by the content of their character, that's the throat chakra, and you go, wow, that's the truth, but that's the throat chakra. So next is the third eye, which is wisdom and ESP. But psychic phenomenon is not the top of the line, and the top is enlightenment, which is the crown chakra. And I've seen auras. I've seen the halo in 2 instances. I saw it on Jerry Garcia's head, and I saw it on Matthew Manning's head. Matthew Manning is a super psychic, an actual ring of light like you see in the 1400s. There are 2 other chakras that Gurdjieff talks about. They're in between those 2 chakras. So there's one in between the 6th and the 7th, and there's one above. So there's supposedly 9, but I agree there's maybe hundreds in another way of looking at it.
Thank you for that.
Third eye, the pineal gland. In radiology, we know that the unilateral retinoblastoma is cancer in one eye, or blastoma in one eye. Bilateral retinoblastoma is in both eyes, and trilateral retinoblastoma is in both eyes in the pineal gland. So the pineal gland has retinal tissue, that calcifies with fluoride and then decalcified by hydroxychloroquine. And it's so the pineal gland decalcified by hydroxychloroquine. Can you address the pineal gland and how it relates to consciousness?
The pineal gland has an input pathway for light. It's sensitive to light. And when we look at the structure of LSD, it has an indole ring, and serotonin has an indole ring. Well, one of the things I wrote in my master's thesis, if someone wants to get high in LSD, you take 50 micrograms of LSD, 50 millionths of a gram. That's if you took sugar and you took 1 or 2 grains of sugar and you took that, you'll be tripping for 8 or 10 hours. And what I thought about was, when the moon comes out, people's personalities change. Our brain is 85% water, and water is a fluid. And so the reason that it's a fluid, you have the water molecules, H2O, rapidly oscillating about 1 million times a second. You can calculate with the law of gravity, M1, M2 over D squared, the mass of the moon times the mass of the Earth, all the distance between them, 240,000 miles squared, is the gravitational attraction between them. You can figure out the gravitational attraction between Jupiter and the Earth. And so there's a lot to astrology. And so it's in the same range as the microgram range. So what I was saying is the fact that we can be so affected by 50 millionths of a gram of a molecule that's very similar to the structure of serotonin and melatonin, for that matter, that just as the moon affects the tides, Jupiter also affects the tides, and Jupiter would also affect the water in our brain, which is oscillating 1 million times a second. So I was making a case that there's a lot to astrology, and if you look at Gauquin's book, Gauquin, he does astrology where he looks at the charts of warriors, of politicians, of singers, etc., and he finds that there's a lot of, it proves out a lot of astrology mathematics.
I just have one more question for you to close out. You mentioned LSD and everything like that, but can you mention how maybe ayahuasca, peyote, all that deals with healing science as well? Because LSD is not natural, but ayahuasca is, from the earth. So everything you're talking about, astrology, I feel like that's as well within the earth too, that we can find those healing factors just naturally, right?
Yes, you mentioned peyote and of course marijuana.
No, I was talking about ayahuasca. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
But what you're talking about is that God or Mother Nature has given us those things. And getting back to the ozone therapy thing, our own body manufactures ozone. So all ozone therapy is enhancing what our own body already does. Our own body uses ozone to disable viruses. Our Creator has given us this tool, and we're living in a society that's asleep. And I use as an example airplanes. I just got an airplane and I'm going back on an airplane. It's a big giant piece of iron, and that thing gets off the ground. And the reason it gets off the ground is we studied birds. So let's study the immune system. So in the same sense, if peyote exists, I don't know the other one that you mentioned. Ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And if marijuana exists and they make us more creative, they're there for a reason. And so I'm saying to look at the environment and to wake up, and you've got to, get above that waking sleep state, realize that we're being programmed. Look at the power of hypnosis that these people have, don't even know that they're hypnotized. And we are all hypnotized at some level. But it's not easy to get into the next state, the waking state, but there's a state even beyond that. And I think it's all linked to getting in touch with nature and really having great respect for Mother Nature. She is a heck of a lot wiser than we are. And if we align ourselves with the mystery of nature, we will raise our consciousness.